Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. On behalf of LISC, Local Initiative Support Corporation, and the National Endowment for the Arts, I welcome you here to the peer exchange for the Our Town Creative Placemaking Technical Assistance Program. We're really excited today to do this particular session that's called Creating Infrastructures and Partnerships to Support Creative Businesses. We've got three wonderful grantees lined up to share their work and take questions from all of you. And so the schedule today will be the three presentations, and then we'll break out into smaller groups so you can all share your work with each other. Before we start, though, I just want to kind of go over, actually, Joe, could you go to the next slide, please? Just want to remind you all about our program goals, and I'm actually going to kick it over to Jen Hughes to kind of welcome everyone and go over these goals for our lab. I mean, our peer exchange and our work together.
Hi, everyone. Great to be with you. Thanks so much, Lynn. Thanks to all of you for taking time out of your day to be here and join us. I think that this is always a great place to really get started and kick off our sessions. Reminders that our technical assistance program, we're always hoping to inspire you, ground you, connect you. Just acknowledging how valuable this peer exchange is. Catherine and I, working on the Our Town program over the last several years, have really recognized the incredible knowledge, experience, expertise, perspectives you as grantees really bring to the conversation. So this peer exchange has a special place in my heart personally, because I'm really looking forward to learning from all of you and hearing the challenges you're encountering and ways you're overcoming them. So we have teed up a pretty exceptional group and recognize that this is really beginning to form a community of practice space with the interactions that we host on our learning lab, as well as the technical assistance throughout the year. So together, I think we'll be able to really dive into some shared challenges and successes, and hopefully you'll leave feeling as energized as I always do after these sessions, because it really fuels me and the work that we're doing at the National Endowment for the Arts. And I'm just so pleased to be here today with all of you. So with that, Lynn, I think I'm sending it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Jen. If you can go to the next slide, Joe, I'm just going to do some housekeeping for the group. If your name hasn't already been changed or isn't your name, please switch your name over to the correct name. And then also, if you wouldn't mind, add your pronouns and the project location that where you're working. Just a reminder, I think everyone had to consent to the recording before you joined the meeting, but the session is going to be recorded. Closed captioning is available. It may just be showing up on your screen as you speak. If you are needing to turn that off, you can go to the bottom of the screen. There's three little dots. If the CC isn't showing up, the CC will show up, and then you can say, you can turn the captions off there in one of the selection panels, but you can also leave them on. While the speakers are speaking, please feel free to pop questions up as they come to you into the chat. We'll field those questions at the end, and we'll also really encourage you to unmute and jump in with a question or comment while we're having that conversation. The format is each speaker will speak for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll have a little bit of time for questions after each speaker. And then at the end, we'll do, like we said before, the breakout groups so that you can dig into things a little bit more on your own with folks. During the conversation, when we're doing the questions and answers after the presentations, please switch your video over to the gallery view so you can see everyone and wave to each other and see each other's faces, and please use your cameras if you can, just so we can all see each other. It's more engaging that way. Again, as one of our rules is always to listen deeply and make no assumptions. So ask the questions that you need to ask and don't assume anything, because that's dangerous territory. So just make sure you're asking the questions, and then feel free to connect with each other. If there's someone on that you've been talking to or you want to make a connection with, use the chat and private chat each other if you want to do that too. So without further ado, we're going to go to the next slide and get our speakers going. We're really excited today to have Dinah and Megan and Maggie here with us to present on their work. Each one of them is stewarding an Our Town grant in their own community and has lots to share about their work. So right now we're going to start off with Maggie from the Baltimore Creative Acceleration Network. So take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to share about our work here at BCAN. And hopefully everyone can see my screen at this point. So BCAN is short for the Baltimore Creatives Acceleration Network. We are a 10-year citywide initiative that was launched by the Maryland Institute College of Art in 2017, essentially to foster a stronger, more equitable creative economy and ecosystem here in Baltimore, using creative entrepreneurship as a lever to achieve this. So our laser focus is really on economic empowerment for creatives in the city of Baltimore. And we do this in as an inclusive a way as possible. So how we define a creative entrepreneur is quite broad. So we include photographers, fashion designers, folks in the beauty industry, musicians, film, anywhere within those verticals and along that supply chain, we provide entrepreneurship support on a holistic level to creatives across the city. To give you some background, BCAN takes actually two approaches to doing this. We do this from an ecosystem level, actually advocating for policies and practices that support creative entrepreneurship, including advocating for new forms of capital, relief funds, and things like that, and pushing our city to be a friendlier place for creatives to thrive. But we also do that in a direct service form. So we actually work with our resource partners in our ecosystem that we're building to provide direct resources to wrap around the creative entrepreneur. So when we talk about the holistic support that we offer, we provide non-dilutive seed investments in some of the companies that we're working with, incubation space, pro bono services such as accounting services, legal services, business trainings to increase the business acumen of the creative entrepreneurs that we're serving, brand audits, pro bono accounting services, mentorship and coaching. We work to really grow and expand the networks that creatives have access to, both among each other, but also among professional service providers that they might not ordinarily have access to. And really, in many ways, we function as an air traffic controller, providing resource navigation to help creatives who might not necessarily always identify themselves as entrepreneurs or business owners organically, with some guidance as to where they can tap into business resources that can support their growth and sustainability. Because really the goal is to end up in a situation in which creatives can actually sustain their livelihoods and thrive themselves, own their creative intellectual property, but also support the growth of the city, because who doesn't want to live in a city that is creative and supportive of its cultural community? So we have several different pathways that we utilize to actually funnel creatives towards these resources, and they're really designed to meet creatives where they are. So our most advanced program, where we've done actually 2 cohorts of this program and had 14 graduates thus far, is our Founder Fellowship, which is an intensive 12-week business accelerator where we actually work with 5 companies who are ready to go all in and actually scale their business. So they've already registered, they've already started a business plan. They're a little bit further along than many of the independent artists in our community, and they really need that whole all-in support in order to get to a place where they can scale. We also have, through launching that program, discovered that we actually needed to create more of an entry-level program called BCAN Pilot, which is more of a 2-day accelerator, really introductory concepts for creatives who are interested in going into entrepreneurship or want to learn more about some of the key business concepts, but might still be at an idea phase for how they want to monetize that business idea. We have a help desk functionality, which is essentially creative coaching, where we offer one-on-one technical support and ad hoc subject matter expert workshops with creative entrepreneurs of all levels. So that's included in the past, like personal finance one-on-ones in partnership with Ameriprise, self-care retreats for creative entrepreneurs, workshops in how to create snack-sized content for your business, utilizing your phone, things like that. Always working in partnership with different community organizations and creative entrepreneurs already operating in the city in order to be able to sort of circulate that dollar as well in how we operate. And we also do networking events, as I said, creating opportunities in order for us to not only celebrate the creative entrepreneurs in our community, but also to start to build those relationships between them. So the Our Town grant that we've received is actually to take these services, this package of business development that we offer, to actually put it on wheels, to take it to be able to create a platform that we can take into different parts of the city and actually activate a mobile marketplace, performance venue, and business training center. It's a project that we actually worked in partnership with our home base, Maryland Institute College of Art, operates a Center for Social Design. So we actually worked with a social designer in order to develop the concept for this unit and to actually create operate the sort of first leg community engaged process to design the mobile unit itself. And so this is actually, if you can see the steps and the way that they're designed, this is a concept that is inspired by Baltimore's Stoops. So really using the mobile's design to sort of create this energy of how we can actually like operate all of these businesses starting from our homes and how we can grow from there and pop up anywhere within the community where we are requested, of course. So to talk a little bit about the impact that we've had thus far, we're a pretty young initiative, but we've definitely had a lot of impact. We've incubated 14 companies, as I mentioned, through our Founder Fellowship Accelerator program. We have also had 65 creative enterprises graduate from our BCAM pilot program, which is that pre-accelerator that I was mentioning. We've served over 1,400 creatives across the city, leveraged over 20 partnerships across Baltimore in order to deliver the services that we have. And we've reached really, there are about 28 Baltimore zip codes and we've been in 25 of them. So we're definitely activating and reaching creative entrepreneurs all over the city, which is something that's really important to us as an organization, to make sure that the programs and the services that we offer are not only led by creatives in Baltimore, but also that we're reaching creatives in Baltimore in a equitably distributed way. So many of the creative entrepreneurs that we serve have been living and working in Baltimore for over 10 years and surveying them, and well over 60% of them are legacy residents of the city. Majority Black city, majority Black population within our creative constituency, and also within our team. And actually we actually have a huge representation of women owned businesses that are participating in our programs as well. And that's not surprising. Black women start businesses at a very high rate, and is very common for this actually trends along with the rates of new business starts on a national level. We've got great outcomes in terms of the learning outcomes. Folks are definitely growing in their key business concepts. We have a really great graduation rate. 90% of all the folks that have participated in our programs have actually completed the programs, even though they're very intense and time consuming. We also have outcomes in terms of milestones that some of these companies that we're working with are really starting to gain traction based on the investment and the wraparound support that we're offering. So just a couple of highlights from our past participants. In our first cohort, many of you may recognize the entrepreneur Khalila Wright and her company Mess in a Bottle has become a nationally recognized brand. She actually just secured a partnership with Backstage Capital in order to do a product line. She received a partnership with Target, and it was featured in over 1,000 stores across the country, and is really just an awesome person. So we actually collaborate with her frequently on programming as well. So she's been hugely supportive in giving back to our program, which is something that's really important as we think about how do we support each other as a community to make sure that we are all thriving alongside each other. many of the companies that we work with are actually social entrepreneurs as well. And so, for example, Mira Kitchen Collective, who graduated from our most recent cohort, they actually established a partnership with World Central Kitchen. So during the pandemic, they pivoted their business model to be able to serve meals and COVID relief. And they were actually just named Marylander of the Year, so we're super proud of her. But we're also serving independent designers, folks like Brandy Mevane, who's actually working on redesigning our website right now. And she actually tripled her revenue. She is one of the examples of a company that went through both our pre-accelerator and our accelerator program to grow her business, and she's seeing the outcomes within that work as well. So just wanted to share a little bit of an overview of the work that we've offered, as well as some lessons learned. So definitely in terms of the key wins with this project have been establishing partners and leveraging the collective impact of the resources that are already existent in Baltimore, and actually connecting the dots between resources that are not traditionally working together, and doing the coordinating work to get us all to collaborate. I think it was also really one of the big strengths of our program is the leadership that we have. We're led by a team of women of color who have been working and operating as creative entrepreneurs in the city for a long time. And so from various different levels. And so we definitely, from firsthand experience, are able to design the programs in a way that is thoughtfully relatable to the creatives that we're serving. And I think that's why we've been able to reach as many people as we have. But we also struggle with a lot of the same things that some of the entrepreneurs that we serve struggle with. We're a very small team. COVID-19 definitely impacted us in terms of having to reduce our staff. We had to make difficult decisions to not fill vacant positions. And so we struggle with some of the same scale issues, even though we are housed within a college, in order to make sure that the program can remain sustainable and our service delivery isn't impacted. So for example, we also had to pivot the way we operated. Rather than exclusively focusing on delivering all of our programs in the same way, we actually shifted our focus last spring to raise funding to support independent artists, and actually coordinating resources that were not necessarily BCAM programs, but utilizing our network to activate it to actually fundraise so that our office, our city's Arts Council, could actually rapidly deploy an emergency relief fund. So those partnerships were really key. But we also had to prioritize what are the needs of our entrepreneurs at this point in time. If they're not receiving relief from the existing safety nets, which are very limited for artists and independent artists. We definitely had to function in a responsive way to be able to provide those services, which meant shifting our timelines, as all of us have with COVID, on some of the deliveries of programs, including the mobile unit. We actually had to shift our timeline for hiring the person that's helping us execute that program, and we'll be bringing them on in the next quarter, in lieu of the previous timeline, which would have been to bring them on last January. So we definitely have experienced a lot of the growing pains of a startup, even though we're operating within a college. But we feel like we've had a lot of great impact, and we are excited to continue to grow our village, to continue to meet people where they are, and to really just function in a way that continues to serve the creative entrepreneurs that inspire us within our community. So I'm excited to jump into the breakout rooms with you all and talk more about this project and the impact that it's had, and to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Maggie. If folks have questions, please put them in the chat, or you can actually just unmute yourself and jump in and ask Maggie the question if that works for you better as well.
I actually have questions for you all. If you don't have questions for me, I'll jump right in. So I guess one question I have is how many of your communities are coordinating with the chambers of commerce, small business resource centers, and other incubators within your context? I see Megan's hand up. And Dinah. Do any of you consider yourselves creative entrepreneurs? Do you relate to that?
Seth is saying yes. I saw Seth say yes. Do you want to talk a little bit more, Maggie, about your relationship with the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm happy to also share about like how some of these partnerships were developed, because I think that that might be, and some of the challenges we faced in that as well. So the project was designed by the college, which is, you know, many of you I'm sure know Micah, great institution with great leadership. Our president is really an innovator and a thought leader within the context of the creative economy. And you know, it was definitely designed where there were several partnerships established. And so one of the strengths of the project, I think, is the way the leadership was brought in. So myself and Sharina Christmas, who's my colleague in this work, really we're given a lot of agency to sort of take this project as previously designed and really make it our own and redesign and fill in some of the gaps, especially in terms of like cultural gaps, where I think as a College of Art and Design, there might have been some blind spots in terms of how to connect with different parts of the community. And so we were able to really build those relationships with business service providers that, you know, maybe weren't part of the college's initial network, expand the incubators to include performing arts groups, film groups, start to build relationships with, you know, we also have a relationship with the Baltimore Development Corporation within the city, which is our city's development arm. So we've started to collaborate with the small business technical assistance networks that have been established actually since COVID-19. So it's sort of part of our pivoting process. And really a lot of it is about information sharing. Artists and creatives are just not promoted to within the context of small business support because of the unique needs. They're sole proprietors, you know, they're not necessarily businesses that are scaling all the time. And so they don't necessarily know, small business organizations don't necessarily know how to promote to creatives, and creatives don't really know how to find small business support organizations. And so really bridging those relationships and helping people find each other, reevaluating how we're communicating with each other so that we're really getting to the essence of some of the financial and economic sustainability challenges that creatives can face. Those are some of that like translation and connection work tends to be really key. And one thing I will also say is that a huge part of the sort of learning curve of BCAN is the sheer number of partners that we've established, and really making sure that we were values aligned, because we're a super values forward organization, you know, so that we were, you know, because we're here in our team meetings talking about decolonizing and how do we do that within the context of a predominantly white institution and all of this, but also understanding that when we're working with corporate partners, working within the context of a private art school context, that we also have to, one, you know, create some boundaries around that and make sure we have clear expectations of each other as partners, different levels of engagement for partners that make sense for the context that we're operating in. And then we're also pushing our partners to think more progressively, frankly, about more openly and creatively about how they support businesses, period. So while, yes, we're here to support artists, we're also in these small business TA networks pushing for more creative forms of capital that are more equitable.
Okay, Terry has a question, and then we're going to have to, Terry, why don't you go ahead, and then after Terry's question, we're going to move on to Dinah, just in terms of time.
Just a quick question. What kinds of businesses are graduates from the network going into?
Sure. So the businesses that we've worked with have been a range. So we've worked with 3D printed architectural designers. We've worked with catering businesses. We've worked with, so thinking about the culinary arts, and it really also, that has to be culturally rooted if we're engaging in that. Thinking about, we've also had graduates that are in apparel, fashion, people who have created a technology around essentially job placement apps for the beauty industry. So it's really taken graphic designers. I mean, it's a whole slew of different creative mediums when we're thinking about the creative industries that we support.
And then there is one more question that came in from my colleague, Carlene Persena, who actually runs our small business work at LISC, who's on the call today to listen.
Hi, Carlene.
Learn. She's just wondering what kind of investments, what can you share, Maggie, the types of investments of funding you've been able to connect the businesses with?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Lynn. I was trying to sneak in a question so I wouldn't disturb too much, but hello, great to meet you, and thanks so much for your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. So the types of investments are a range. So we because we really try to match people with things that make sense for where they're at. So for example, for the Founder Fellowship, that was a little bit further along. You had folks like Kalila who were like ready to go out for equity funding and things like that. So we actually did a pitch competition. And then while we gave a non-dilutive seed investment, we had venture capital investors from around the country serve on the panel to see and meet these entrepreneurs that we were graduating. So that was for our more advanced program. But we also connect folks on a daily basis with like Kiva. We have some organizations that are more specific, if it's somebody that's looking, it's a Black-led business, okay, well, we'll connect you with the 3 R's program that Melissa Bradley is coming out with, so that you can navigate COVID-19, because that's the kind of technical support that you need, and it comes with money. But our investments, because we're actually structured as part of the college, like we actually do it as grants. We shape it as non-dilutive seed investments because we want people to start to think about the kind of money that they're taking as a business owner, because really, we want to educate and change mindsets as much as possible. So it's not just a grant, it's also a type of capital. We're not taking equity. It's not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. You are at a seed stage, so start thinking about that language as well. But we really just try to match make people to the kind of funding that they are looking for. And really, I think the friendliest form honestly is crowdfunding at this point for the stage of entrepreneurs that we're working with. So somebody asked what level of staff support this. Whew. It's me and Sharena. We're out here like fighting the good fight. So 2 full-time. And then we are actually, that was what I mentioned. We started as a 3-person team. And so we had actually had a transition right before COVID-19 hit, and decided not to fill that vacant position, so that we could make sure that we were good, making prudent business decisions as well. And so we have been working with contractors to fill some of our communications needs, which is a big part of what we do, is just communicating resources that are out there. And then we are working on bringing on, we are looking to add a program manager to assist us with the launch of the mobile unit, which is a huge project in itself as well. So we want to make sure we're adding staff. And I'm hoping to get some extra funding to bring back the communications lead position that we had.
Awesome. Thanks,
so
Maggie.
We lean heavy on our partners, basically.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. This was a great presentation. And, hopefully we'll have a little more time for folks to ask more questions in the smaller breakouts if we get that far. So I'm gonna ask Dinah to queue up her presentation, and she's going to be talking about her work at Creative Portland in Portland, Maine.
Okay, greetings from Portland, Maine. Here I live on the coastal land of the Penobscot Nation, and we have a population of about 66,000. And I'm very excited to tell you about the project that we have engaged in with the Our Town grant, and also pleased to announce that we received another grant, which we'll announce tomorrow, from NEA Our Town to expand on this project. and to expand it throughout the region. So let me just begin by sharing. Hold on one second. And I will present this in a format that you can see. I have to cancel this. Okay. So Creative Portland is the City of Portland's nonprofit arts agency. We have a small staff of 2, and our mission is to support the creative economy by basically promoting our artistic talents and cultural assets, by forging and cultivating partnerships, and by stimulating our workforce through various initiatives and programs like the Creative Bus Shelter Initiative, which we worked on this project. So here's Katie and myself, our staff of 2. We do have quite a large board of 16 board members that represent private sector and the arts community as well, plus a few city representatives representing the City Council and the Economic Development Department. So we have city partners that we work with all the time, including the Chamber of Commerce, the BID, or Portland Downtown, Visit Portland, which is the tourism outlet, and so forth. Now, I'm going to show you a quick little video to give you a sense of what the overview of this project is. Creative Portland, in partnership with Metro and GP Cog, applied for a National Endowment for the Arts Our Town grant in 2018. The arts community, along with local and state elected officials, including Congresswoman Shelley Pingree, offered letters of support. In 2019, we were awarded a $25,000 matching grant and recruited partners and matching sponsors to bring the project to fruition. They included Rock Row, American Steel and Aluminum, Design Tex, and Portland Industrial Coatings. Creative Portland issued an open call to local artists. We assembled a volunteer curatorial team represented by curators and artists from Portland Museum of Art and Indigo Arts Alliance, as well as our project partners who served on the review committee. The chosen artists represented various perspectives under the theme of celebrating our city's diversity. 3 finalists, including Ebenezer Akapo, a Mecca alum and Ghana native, Pigeon, a French street artist, and Justin Levesque, a USM art alumni, were able to deliver on time and on budget despite the COVID-19 pandemic, with installations that took place in August of 2020, celebrated by the mayor and cultural leaders. 2 of the completed shelters are on the peninsula, and the other is located on the USM campus. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how we got this project off the ground and how we really were focusing on elevating the practices of local artists, from their studio desks to creating public art in their community. And the way we did this was by providing mentorships, by finding in-kind services and providers who could provide the materials, the steel, who had laser cutting machines and were willing to offer those skills, materials, and services. And it really was a fascinating project for us because we were not really, ready to be project managers, so to speak, from the start. However, we found that with such a wide community involvement that we were able to, create these amazing, end product by, reaching out to the community and forming these partners. And as a result, now that we have a few of these up, there's so much interest from the private sector, from everybody else, that we plan to have a whole region of awesome bus shelters in the future to celebrate our city's diversity and to make sure that we can continue to hire artists and to elevate their practices and to give them the exposure that they deserve and need. So I'm going to continue on with the sharing. Hold on one second, because it has a, let me escape. Okay, so going back to this. How do I get to the next thing? I'm trying to get out of this one. Okay, so I was talking about our partners, and is this being shared right now? Let me just share it. So at first we went to American Steel. They're located in Portland, and they have state-of-the-art laser cutting machines and the materials, and they usually are just working with big ships and doing propellers and airplanes and that kind of thing. And I went to talk to the CEO, who kind of thought I was nuts, asking him to be involved in this little sort of arts project in his mind. But cut to a year later, he's all in. He considers himself the champion of public art and the arts. And he was dying to get his own staff and crew involved in the creation of future arts installations. So it's just an example of how those arts-based community initiatives, really affect everybody. And the same thing with Portland Industrial Coating. They agreed to do the powder coating of the steel cut panels. Now, this kind of project could be cost prohibitive if you don't have these in-kind services and materials. And, people sort of said, how did you get them? What'd you do? I just called them and asked. I have no other strategy other than just reaching out directly to people, telling them what you're doing, appealing to them one-on-one, building that relationship. We also had, vinyl was a big part of several of the projects. And you can have vinyl printed, but applying it onto plexiglass or lucite is not such an easy task, to prevent the bubbles and everything from happening. So we had this wonderful team of women at Signarama who helped to, do the actual installations. We also hired a artist liaison to serve as a program coordinator, a mentor, a cheerleader, to help the nervous artists in making their project come, to fruition. And what I mean by that is, if you see here the portraits of the Mainers that Pigeon drew on charcoal on paper, at first he had, maybe 10 different portraits to choose from. And what he didn't have, what he didn't have was the ability to photograph them and to get the high resolution that we needed to reproduce these pieces. So he did two things. One of them, he went back and he created a new portrait that, was something that he could get photographed. And then he took examples of his friendships with different new Mainers, or people that he has met in Maine, like himself being an immigrant, that live in Maine, that own Maine, that feel Maine, but that other people often don't think look like Maine. So his project was about, pointing that out and saying, we are Mainers. It's called the Mainer Project. And there's been a lot of community discussion and involvement, since this particular installation went up, and it's been really positive. No vandalism on anything so far, by the way. So you sort of feel, wow, maybe people really do respect, public art. They're tagging everything else all over the city, but not the art. So I think that's pretty cool. Here's one of the shelters that was the vinyl. This was, we're talking about different tides, climate change. I can't show you the panel that explains everything right now, but this was done by a USM art student, and it's actually on the USM campus. So again, there's pride in that local, connection there. And he used the blue color, as he calls it, of the handicap blue paint is the puddle melting. And, we just used basic products, latex paint, and Metro the transit organization, GP Metro, is in charge of maintenance and cleaning it. So that's very important to note that, you can create these things, but you need to know how to sustain them, clean them, and keep them going. So Metro agreed that, if we were going to create these stunning structures and attract new ridership, reduce the stigma of riding a bus, and allow for more people to get involved, that they would willingly and enthusiastically take care of them. So that was, that was great. Here's part of the installation team. The artist is right here in the middle. They're using a hair dryer to keep the bubbles from popping. Another installation person here. This is before he painted the ground. Again, you can see there are 4 portraits in this one, all local Mainers by Pigeon. And we have Ebenezer's, which was a steel cut piece inspired by Adinkra symbols from Ghana. Adinkra symbols represent different feelings or emotions. In this case, this is hope and friendship. So you see the teeth and tongue of friendship, which goes together and forms friendship in the culture in Africa, where they use Adinkra symbols. So again, here they are. Some have masks on, as you can see on the right. We did installation during COVID. There's Ebenezer, the happy artist, and about to jump on the bus. Somebody caught that picture, so I thought that was kind of cute. And then here's a new shelter that is going up next week. This is at the Portland Transportation Center. So this is the 4th shelter of our project. And this was inspired by seaweed, rockweed along our coast. So again, we comment also on the, environmental, economic, social, and cultural diversity. So it's quite a wide prompt, but again, it is about diversity. Everybody came together to celebrate. Everyone had a piece, skin in the game, so to speak, and an interest in it. That's what made the project a real success. And that's why there's so much interest moving forward. Also in a town where Portland has not had any funding for new contemporary public art, this is an opportunity to create add-ons on existing structurally engineered pieces, so that the artist doesn't have to worry about liability, engineering, and all those elements. We're adding on to an existing structure. And, that takes off a lot of the pressure for people that don't have the experience. Now, I'm going to point out here that in doing the creative bus shelters and this particular arts banner for public health campaign that we did this summer, what has happened is that these arts-based community initiatives are fairly new to Portland, where we're seeing the artwork going up and around town. So maybe some of these things are temporary, but the bus shelters are permanent. And what's happening is that we're attracting the attention of the private sector, and we're attracting the attention of other community partners, and able to, go on and create an impact through the arts. I don't have a slide of it right now, but we just put up all sorts of designs on barricade jacket designs, they're called, for all the street closures to open up, dining and so forth, as we go on. What is this? Oh, this is just a quick, kind of loud music, but what is 30? I think it's 60 seconds. Here we go. It was the Creative Bus Shelter Initiative that got us going, and helped to kind of empower us and allow us to feel confident to move on and to solicit help from the private sector, and to keep artists relevant during COVID, and to showcase the unique style, vibe, and artwork of local artists. And, that is a challenge to do in a city that has minimal municipal investment in the arts and is a city that's struggling economically in many levels. So we're incredibly grateful to the NEA for the support on this. And, we're at this point, we're grant reliant, but now we feel like we are really segueing and moving into, finding more private support and help. So somebody is asking, is Portland still a refugee immigration center? Well, we are not a sanctuary state, but we are a welcoming city. And the population increase in Portland over the last 5 years has been mostly from immigrants, 5,000 to be exact. And there's been a decrease in the white population, aging, and kids leaving to go to college and so forth. There's now a whole campaign, a boomerang campaign, to bring those people back that go out to college and hopefully bring them back to Portland. And as we show more and more opportunities for artists, we also created a performing arts showcase, annual performing arts showcase at our big, Lincoln Center, Merrill Auditorium is called here. And that show is called Here Are What's Here. And again, we showcased it, the best of performing arts. And it's just, hands down, when anybody sort of doesn't or says they don't understand arts as an engine, it's just so obvious. We can see it right in front of our eyes, what's happening. And it's really exciting. We have a long way to go. I'm not saying, we're there, but each drop helps, and we're on our way. And it's because we needed the seed money and support. I really believe that. So should I answer some of these questions, or Lynn, are you going to?
Yeah, Dinah, go ahead. And Marty Marty, who's also a Portland Mainer, asked you a specific question about the Metro. I don't know if you can see it there.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, what Marty's saying is that one lesson learned is that we were able to forge a new partnership with Metro and GPCOG. Those are unlikely partners, really.
And can you just say what Metro is and what GPCOG is? Just
okay, so yeah. GP Metro is the public transit organization that, it runs the bus service all throughout Greater Portland region. GPCOG is called Greater Portland Council of Governments. That is like, they have federal money assigned to transportation, environment, education, and so forth. So partnering with those two organizations helped us to, win the support also of that sort of private sector as well. And they, it was through a simple, lunch meeting that I had years ago with the head of GPCOG. And she happened to have been from the same state, Massachusetts. We were one cove apart growing up. And so we already liked each other, right away because of that. And she told me what she does. And I said, well, how can we integrate the arts into some of your campaigns? And she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to have, boats that go around, the harbor, or buses with art and banners. And she said, well, let's go to Metro, and we went to Metro. And when we talked about using the canvas of the shelter for public art, the head of Metro said, you had me at hello, as he said, it's really cute. So, we were lucky. It was just a friendly, simple conversation that sort of evolved naturally. Okay. Are Penobscot artists or images of their art involved? I'm thinking particularly of basketry. Well, in this case, 3 out of our 4 shelters happen to be created by immigrant artists, we can call, and none of them picked basketry for their designs. But we already know of 2 who are interested in figuring out sustainable products, whether it's wood or weavings, for possibly the next future initiative. So I don't know if they'll make it through the review committee. We have a whole, curatorial team, a review committee who looks at these pieces for not only their impact, artistic excellence, and but also for durability. Can the artist deliver on time? Are they accountable? All those things we had to take into account.
Dinah, can you talk a little bit about how you did? I know you mentioned that there was some wraparound support to the artists that were doing these pieces and work. Are there specific things that you all did to, like on the business side, with the artists to sort of build skills for some of the folks that this was a new kind of foray into the public arts world?
Yes. So for instance, on Ebenezer Capo's shelter, which I can show you which one that is. If I can go back, I don't know how I go back. Oh, well. Oh, yes. On this shelter here, I'm going to share it now. Okay, on this shelter, this artist had never done large scale, work. However, he had worked in jewelry. So, and he had a degree from RIT in industrial design. So he also had the skills to create the renderings necessary for the actual cutting that had to take place. So he had to work directly with the IT, the tech group at American Steel, to come up with the types of files that they needed, which were very specific to their bed sizes and so forth. And, they collaborated and worked together on that. And after he did that, another artist said, "Oh, Ebenezer, can you help me with IT? I don't know how to do drawings that are ready for this." So there started to be a collaboration with that and with the industrial coating people as well, who, basically taught them how you put on this powder, you bake it. It's sort of, it's basically, as they call it, shake and bake, but it's really powder and bake and create this permanent, installation. In terms of the vinyl reproductions, we had a local vendor who worked very closely with the artists to help them get their pieces in the grayscale and contrast and everything correct. So it was a lot of different skills were being incorporated that way, if that's what you mean. That's how they learn from the private people.
Great, thanks. I'm gonna we're definitely behind schedule. So
oh, sorry, I just see so many questions that I don't know.
No, that's okay. Is there another question there that you want to answer, and maybe that'll just be the last one, and then we'll move on to Megan. I just want to make sure we have time to get to Megan. And
okay, yeah, okay. No, we can move on to Megan now, and then I can always be in the next group later, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the breakout.
Or people can also reach out directly to you and
right. But I did want to say just quickly to Maggie that I'm very impressed with your program, Maggie. And it's something that we, it's funny because in Portland, we have Maine Startup and Create Week, and they create this networking opportunity, but it's not just geared toward artists. It's all different kinds of, incubators. It could be food related, whatever. And so, I'm sort of interested that yours is focusing on the arts or cultural life, it sounds like. And we have that kind of thing kind of going on, but all in different groups. So I want to look at how you bring that all together and mesh with that, because that could be very helpful for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Dinah. All right, so thank you, Dinah. So we're going to go from Baltimore to Portland, Maine, and now we're going to go down to Oxford, Mississippi. And Megan is going to talk about the Arts Council's work there, supporting creative entrepreneurs. Megan, I don't know if this is already part of your presentation, but I think it'd be really helpful to the group to hear a little bit about your community before you start, just so folks can get grounded in Oxford, Mississippi, since it's not as easily understood, or, you know, you're one of those rural places that we that aren't necessarily, you know, in the, all right, I'm saying all the wrong things right now, but they don't know Baltimore. They don't know Oxford.
You're fine. Yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and I'll talk about the community that we live in. It is, I'm Megan Gallagher and I'm from the Yakima Patapsco Arts Council, and that's named for William Faulkner's fictional county where many of his books take place, and he lived in Oxford. And Oxford is like a city, but it's in a rural county in Mississippi. So we have some of the best of the city life and some of the best of rural life, but then we also have some of the worsts, including the largest achievement gap in the state. The real estate here, because we do have the university here, is a destination obviously for students, and retirees also love to move here. So real estate is very expensive, and it's hard for artists a lot of times if they're starting out and beginning their small business journey for them to stay here. And a lot of times what we have done in the past is people don't realize that there are small business resources in the community, and so they choose to move to Austin or Memphis or Nashville where there's more perceived resources. But we've been working with artists for about 15 years in the sense of small business education. We noticed that people were coming through the door with similar questions, and so we started a workshop series. Now it's called the Big Bad Business Series, but then it was called the Arts Incubator. And so they were workshops where we could connect our artists who were working with a small business expert and tackle some sort of topic. Because even if some of this, you know, were college students that had a degree in art, and they may have taken that business class, but once you're actually in the throes of creating that small business and you've got to organize yourself so you can do your taxes, or you have to write a business plan, it becomes really real. So our project is called the Lab, and so it's a 2-year project, and we're still in our kind of first year, where we're going to have a cohort of 5 to 6 artists, and they're going to get intensive professional development support. So let me see if I can advance my slide. Okay. So these are some of the features of our lab. You have personalized goal setting. So the artist, they're determining the goals that are authentic to their business and what they want to set and prioritize. And we're just trying to help them amplify their story and connect with experts in the community. They do get advanced professional development support, like sessions with a social media advisor or a lawyer if they need intellectual property questions answered. There's also opportunities for them to go to small business events, and we set it up so that they're going to be interacting as equals, not that the artist just kind of shyly comes in to the room and doesn't interact or feel like they have something to say within the small business community. And then pre-COVID, we were going to have open studio hours to grow their audience and customers, and then a studio space and common space, like a maker space, where they could cross-pollinate ideas. And what it's kind of right now is a common space at a building called the Edison co-working space. And that is for the artists to use as office space or a place to get some work done, but it also has other small businesses outside of the arts industry there, so people can connect with other small businesses, hire them, or vice versa. So we started building partnerships just by asking the question. It says that my internet's unstable, so I apologize. But we just started serving the community by building partnerships with the small business community and emphasizing that the arts were beautiful to look at or to enjoy, but they're also a significant economic driver in the community. As a result of the Americans for the Arts survey, we knew and we know and can tell people that they bring in $11 million annually to our county. So when you say that, people start to listen. And some of the partnerships that were foundational for us were the Small Business Development Center that's on the University of Mississippi's campus, and the Chamber and Economic Development Foundation here. And the Economic Development Foundation, the Oxford Lafayette County EDF, is our primary partner for this grant. One of the things we learned at the very outset when we first started sending artists with complicated questions and recommended they go to the SBA is that the SBA on average meets with a business 8 times and has those 8 consultations, and that's one of the best ways to determine if a business is successful. So we knew that our artists needed ongoing support. It wasn't just a one-time thing that we could provide that answer. We needed for the artists to be able to have a resource that they could come back to. And if they didn't want to come back to us, that was fine, but they needed someone in the community that they could reach out to and feel empowered to connect with. So obviously can be at times a language barrier between the arts and business, the business world. And what we've done, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, is really try and to get those 2 groups into the same room to talk with each other. So on the left, you'll see this was in the Edison co-working space. We had a workshop there. And within that group, students, there is the vice president of the EDF in that red vest. And there's also well-established professionals. The great thing that we found is that the professional development opportunities that we're providing are open to the public, so that people, if they are in a small business and the topic is relevant to them, they just come. So that's put our artists in the way of opportunities to be hired or to make a connection with someone that's going through a similar challenge. Even though they're not using the exact same language, everyone can relate to how crazy it is to have to sit down and just grind through the business plan, you know? So, and we also changed as an entity. It wasn't just our artists or us going and trying to change attitudes at the EDF. It's also us. We had to change the way that we started talking to people. So what you see here is an info card that we tried to do last year in order to have something to pass out. And as we, build these relationships, we have these key pieces in place already as we're asking people to get involved. We have these reasons and compelling stories to tell. And we just keep asking people and we keep trying to connect with them. We have a steering committee that meets once a year, and they kind of help us determine what's important in the small business community. And it's made up of people that are emerging as small business owners and people that are well established, as well as retirees and university professors. So with the creative cohort, I just wanted to share a couple of examples of the work we've really tried to find artists that represent a diversity of media and experience. And so on the left, you have Talitha Kumi Jewelry, and she also does purses. So she's started some beadwork there, and that's something that she included on her social media. And then to the right, Hospitality Bros, which is actually, he's a culinary artist, but he's starting a consulting company. And so he wants to help restaurants open their bar or develop their bar menu, or to provide training videos for their staff, whether it's front or back of house, as well as he's working on his Patreon account. And we're delighted that he wanted to participate in the lab. So I will just say this, we do, you know, in Mississippi, a lot of times there's this mythical like caterpillar or whirlpool plant or some other kind of thing that everybody is looking to come to our community and to create jobs. But we found at the Arts Council, and we really advocated for it, that artists are such a wonderful economic driver, and they just, you know, breathe life into a community. And so it can get a little bumpy with our relationships with people. Not everyone gets that at first. And then sometimes people get it for a while, but then you have to kind of renew the relationship. And so if I can offer any or answer any questions anybody has, and please feel free. Oh, I should say this, that my executive director, he did go so far as to join the board of the chamber, and he's currently the president. So he is aggressively building relationships in our community. And it's not very often that you hear of an arts council director being the chamber president. So we're really trying to hopefully change attitudes, and to also just provide or facilitate more opportunities to artists so that they feel included and valued in the community. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Megan? Or any thoughts they want to share? Maggie's been really vocal in the chat. Thank you, Maggie, for all those encouraging words as we've been going through today. John, you want to just jump in and sort of share your comment and what you're thinking?
Sure. I really appreciated all the presentations, especially Megan, yours from also a rural perspective, and that use of language can be really challenging sometimes in talking about artists. But I think one of the things that really struck me was with all three presentations is a strong link to Chamber of Commerce and how important that is in developing and strengthening those relationships and really adding that value. So it's not just artists, those are independent business people, they're innovators, they're entrepreneurs. So just want to applaud all of your efforts in that, because I think it's a really key part to all of your stories.
One thing I could add too is that sometimes, you know, you'll come up to a partner that you just know you need to have them on board, and you sometimes just have to find the back door in a small town like this, and it can be the same in a larger city, but sometimes finding that person that will champion and be the opinion leader for that, to that organization on your behalf, that ambassador.
Megan, do you want to talk a little bit about the new build, the work that you're doing with the Committee on the Humanities, the the building a little bit more and how that's sort of relating to the rest of your programs and this program in particular, what that looks like?
Yeah, so we have we did apply because this is a pilot program for us to have this maker space for artists and even humanities, that we applied for a capital grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities for a center that would be, I mean, kind of an addition to the building, but a significant one. And we did receive funding for that. So over the next 5 years, Wayne is going to be sweating it out as we try and raise the 4-to-1 match. But we're just really hoping, again, the main thing, to get artists to think of themselves as entrepreneurs, even if they just have the kernel of the idea and it's not fully formed, for them to go to a meeting and to kind of get the gears turning on what it could look like, or if you're doing something else and actually this would make more sense. And just having them in the room with the small business leaders, that is where we just want to connect the two groups of people so that they can answer each other's questions, and that artists have a name and a face to connect with in the community. Because it can be intimidating. Some of the places we even try and move our workshops around to make sure that there's at least 1 or 2 places that people should always feel welcome to come to, and that the workshop is a safe space for them to try a new space, like the Economic Development Foundation, where I wouldn't even feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Before I started working here, I would never have walked in there, but we want people to feel like that's a resource for them and for artists to take advantage of it.
Okay, so does anyone, so Margie Waller, who's done a really amazing job as usual, helping prepare our presenters and talk through their presentations, are in the middle of actually like chatting back and forth on our phones about what we should do next, because we promised you time to talk to each other, but it's now 15 past the hour, and I'm trying to decide, since we have only 15 minutes left, what you all want to do. Do you want to break into groups for 15 minutes and say hi to each other, or do you want to skip that part for today? If everyone could just sort of like, I kind of want to take a vote if possible. We're not prepared to take a real vote, but if anyone feels strongly one way or the other, like you really want to get into groups with people and break out into small groups, please just maybe raise your hand. And if you don't, it's okay too. This is a kind of a bizarre request at the moment, but and I apologize for that, but I'm just going on the fly here. We don't want to keep you over the 3:30, but we also promised that we'd have breakout groups, and there isn't that much time left. So do you want to go into the groups, or do you want to just
Dinah has her hand up. What are you going to suggest, Dinah? We can't hear you. You need to.
I was going to suggest that we have a small group. We can all just, stay here in this space and see each other, and there's no reason to go into tiny groups.
Yeah, I was going to say the same, and it looks like Matt is also. So let's do that.
Everyone that thinks that, put a thumbs up.
Okay. All right, perfect.
So I just want to encourage you, if, in addition to asking questions of our presenters or following up on that, you are also welcome to share an update on your project or ask a question about something that you're dealing with in the time that we have left. It's kind of an open time.
I loved Scott Oshima's presentation about your partnership as a relationship. And I just wanted to say that I think about it a lot, because I'm like, the love is gone, and we need to renew our vows or something.
Yeah, we certainly heard a lot about the importance of partnerships and relationships and creating them and maintaining them in all of your presentations today, which I thought was really valuable.
I'd like to hear what some other people are working on now.
Well, I'd like to ask about how you all and all three of the communities built trust with the communities that may not have been involved in the before, artists as well as different diversity of your communities.
That's a good question. I mean, for me, I'm still building trust. I'm still fairly new, but I find that it's through one-on-one relationships, and you keep inviting them back, and you keep sharing and bringing other people into it and introducing other people to other people, and the group just keeps getting more and more familiar, and that's how we build trust.
Dinah, can I jump in and just ask that you talk about before the pandemic, you started hosting, was it a monthly gathering or even a weekly gathering in the morning? And
Yeah,
that things could happen.
That's possible. I started a Monday morning drop by, I called it. It was an open house coffee hour on the first Monday of every month. And it was really just no agenda, but we were inviting the community, arts community, and the chamber people, as we're called them, the private sector, to come in. And we sat around the table. Usually you'd have an average of, 10 to 18 people. But it was really nice because people did go around and share. And I really feel strongly, as does Marty, in the benefits of a share circle and how we learn and share. How we learn from each other when we share, because the more we share, the more we care. And, that's all part of it. So I think we convene a lot. Creative Portland does, we're doing 3 community discussions this year. The last one was with artists. Over 125 artists attended. And that was just to express and share feelings about how we felt this past year during COVID. The next one will be more on opening, reviving, and economic opportunities for venues and partnerships. And that's on June 21st. You guys could come to one of those if you want. It's open to the public, but it's convening. You're right, Marty. It's having open house and open door and an open mind.
That's great. Thanks, Dinah. I actually, in terms of that same question, I'm curious, Maggie, working that BCAN is located on a university campus, MICA is fairly prestigious in Baltimore. There's boundary crossing that has to go on there. It's really impressive how deeply you're working in community. How have you managed to break down those unbuilt, managed to break through that kind of boundary crossing from university campus to community?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a huge challenge. So I will say that a lot of it has depended on the work of our teams, prior commitment and work and the trust that we've been building for decades collectively within the community. And then we were brought on to bring this idea of BCAN into fruition. And so I think that the trust that we've earned over time and the reverence that we have for our creative community in Baltimore is how we've maintained some of the trust and how we've overcome issues when we have those challenges or those tensions rather. So I think that's part of it. So who's in the leadership and what is their sort of existing relationship within the community. I think also we have different stakeholders so that there are means of moving through this work that might build trust in one space, but might break trust in another space. So trying to navigate that line is it's a lot of tension and in a way that's necessary. And we have a great sense of responsibility when it comes to that. and respect for that tension. But it is something that we constantly like had to, we tried to, Adrienne Marie Brown has this saying where she, it's like move at the speed of trust. And like, it is 100% accurate. Like anytime we haven't moved at that speed, things go off the tracks quickly and we end up having to backtrack and reset. But we've had to like go back and like really say like, okay, well, like, let's go back to our values and like start to figure out, and not just like as a team ourselves, but also as a partnership network, but also as a part of a college. Like it happens at every level. And so really having to go back and revisit those values is so key. And so, yeah, so I guess it takes time. And I think it also takes like a lot of consistency, right? So, cause it's like, it can break at any moment. And so just being committed to continuing to earn that trust.
Has anyone else on the call been, thinking about that in terms of the work you're doing? And do you have anything else to share with the group on how you're working to build those partnerships and trust in those partnerships? Any of the folks who aren't Vicky or Matt or Greer, Maggie?
I'm going to unmute. Hi, this is Vicky Chipolis. I'm working on the Little Falls project. I just wanted to say our group is finally, after sort of a COVID convalescence or something, we're really charged up and moving again. And one of the things that we've really identified, because there are a certain number of council members, our partner is the City of Little Falls. I work with the Five Wings Arts Council, a regional arts council. And there's some council members who have been kind of reticent about this, but then there's other council members who are totally fired up. So we're really working on a system of regular communication back and forth with all the community projects that are starting to happen related to this project. And it's just been exciting to see the ownership that's being taken. And the idea, the whole premise of our project is building a capacity through stronger collaboration skills in a community that doesn't have a strong history of that. And really using that partnership and that example within the City Council as a means to do that. So we're pretty pumped, and it's been fun to see that starting now.
Thanks.
I just want to say too, in Oxford with the University of Mississippi, we have a lot of racial tensions that aren't going away. They kind of just on a slow simmer because there is such a difference in the achievement gap in the schools and in the cost of living here. And we just really try to remain cognizant of serving the entire community and working with artists and small business men and women who have a vision, and for us to just assist them as they want on their terms, and not for us to come in and try and dictate or dominate that kind of stuff. And that we also recognize that it's not gonna, our relationship as an arts council, where a lot of especially African American people don't feel invited to come in. We just are constantly working on it and working with community leaders to help them put on their events that they want, assisting them there. And that not everything is going to go perfectly, but we're committed, to that. Going the speed of trust is definitely a great phrase for it.
I wanted to add something to what Maggie was saying before. I feel envious of the MICA relationship. You have MICA, we have Mecca, Maine College of Art, and I find that it's difficult for arts agencies in terms of their fundraising pursuits. In that many other arts organizations feel territorial and don't go after our donors. This is our donor pool. Stand back, kind of thing. And I don't have I don't want to be specific here, but we don't have that general feeling from our local Maine College of Art, where they're looking after their own interests and their alumni and their students, and not so much to the community the way that you guys are. So I'm really happy to hear that. And what I try to do is not step on their toes and piss more people off, and try to reach out to the private sector, who is responsive always when I say we have a matching grant. That, oh, we're into that. Whereas, but what if we didn't have grants? Then how we would be stuck in a place where we're trying to serve the greater good. We're trying to serve everybody in the community and take much more of an egalitarian approach than each individual arts organization. Yet, we're not allowed to go after the donors. So it's a fine line to walk and understand how to work in tandem and to empower and lift each other. They've got the saying here, rising tides lift all boats, but there's a lot of that. Is anyone really walking the talk? I'm just saying, and Marty, excuse me for maybe saying that, but it's something that I've run into here.
Dinah, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that money power dynamic is really hard. And Micah actually had this balance. So we're totally grant funded. So they actually early on made a commitment to raise the majority of the funding from national funders that weren't already investing in Baltimore, things like that, in terms of getting it kicked off. But there is that, as far as the trust building and partner relationships, once you start talking about the money, people get really there's a saying in Baltimore, there's always this crabs in a barrel mentality, which is such a violent saying. I hate it. But it's how all that mindset shifting has to happen at the entrepreneur level, at the educating foundations level, at how, institutions, how can we behave better? How can we partner more empathetically? All of that. So I appreciate
and we're trying to be entrepreneurial now. We're developing a cultural app. It's a pilot program. It's a game-changing marketing tool, in my opinion, to increase access to the arts in all the different artistic genres 24/7. It's like a First Friday Art Walk 24/7. And we're doing it to benefit everybody. And this cultural app is going to be available to all tourists, local patrons alike. And everyone loves it. But when it comes to helping with it, it's we love it, but we'll see. I understand what you're saying.
All right. So it's 3:29, and I have a couple of things I just want to bring up before we close out today. First of all, for those of you who are on the call, and many of you are what we're calling our core users of the TA, I just want to let you all know personally, we're not going to be having a learning lab in June. We're meeting on Friday to kind of talk through what our programming should be for the summer. We're finding that we want to spend some time really planning the next lab with our resource team, and actually getting some feedback from some of you on what you want to see happen next in terms of how we're learning together and in terms of the lab. So we may be reaching out to some of you. I don't think we'll be sending out a survey, just because people seem surveyed and zoomed out. So we're not going to do that. But if any of you on this call right now in this group are thinking about what you'd like to see next, or what's been really inspiring to you in this TA, what's been really helpful, I would love to hear directly from you, or Margie. You could also be in touch with Margie or Leah to share your thoughts. Just would love to hear from you on that. Leah is also going to be doing some interviews with folks, just to kind of get your what your experience has been like, and how we can learn from you to do better going forward in this work. So you may be hearing from Leah. We haven't actually figured out who we're going to be doing those interviews with yet. So don't, but some of you may hear from Leah to do some of that as well. So, and if anyone has any thoughts that they really want to share, or they want to be part of thinking through the next lab, please reach out to me directly with the L McCormick email at LISC, and I'll be happy to talk to you, set up a time to talk to you about what might be helpful. And with that, Margie, do you want to add anything? Do you have any thoughts you want to add, or Leah?
I just wanted to thank our three presenters.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really, I mean, I had talked to all of you, but it was really striking to me to hear you all together and how much kind of overlap there was in some of the thinking and issues. So thank you for that. It was really terrific.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Leah, was I totally off base when I brought up what we were doing? I just want to make sure.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's been a great conversation. I've been very happy to listen in. I've been taking notes in the background, and we will be in touch with some of you moving forward to hear a little bit more about your experience, more kind of direct feedback. But we'll give you lots more information about that as we go forward.
And just one last thing, we still have an amazing resource team that's standing at the ready to help anyone who needs help, or even if you just have one little thing you want to talk through with someone, please feel free to just reach out directly to the resource team member if you like, or get in touch with me again at the Lynn McCormick email, not the Our Town one, and I'll connect you. Please take advantage of that. It's a really great, wonderful part of this program, and we really want to encourage you to take advantage of reaching out to folks. So thanks, everyone. Again, thanks for the speakers. Thanks for everyone who joined, and have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.
Goodbye,
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Gloria.